I try to tell buyers, like, don't let the idea of a big down payment scare you off.
There should be nothing but openness and transparency.
And I think we have perpetuated that myth, if I'm being really transparent with you.
Welcome, everyone, to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today we are myth bustin'. I have talked to many real estate agents this year, and I've talked to a lot of them about the most common myths in real estate. So we have combined some of the best ones here for you today. From what it takes to actually buy a house to what it's like working as a real estate agent, we are debunking myths left and right. So without further ado, let's chat with our agents. What would you say are just some of the biggest myths that people believe about real estate?
I'd say one of the most common myths is that you need 20% down payment to buy a house. And this just isn't true. And even though that's the standard, but there actually are a variety of loan options available that require as little as 3% down. And there are assistance programs that can help you save even more than that. So, I try to tell buyers, like, don't let the idea of a big down payment scare you off. And then another myth that sellers have is that they should overprice their home and then leave room for negotiation. That is a big no-no. The reality is that, overpricing your home can actually hurt your chances of selling. So, buyers today, they're pretty savvy. They can easily spot an overpriced home. So this often results in a property sitting on the market for a really long time. It can get stale. And then instead of people calling you for interest, they're actually calling you for concern. If they see that a house has been on the market for 30 days to 3 months, that is when you're going to have to maybe eventually lower the price. And that's when there's blood in the water, right? So the best strategy, I think, is to price your home competitively from the start. So I recommend pricing it slightly under market value. And I feel like this strategy really maximizes your visibility and attracts a larger pool of buyers. For example, let's say you're aiming for a 1.1 million price point, then I would suggest pricing it at a little under 990,000, and that captures all of the buyers under $1 million. So this increases the likelihood of multiple offers and a potential bidding war, which ultimately leads to a higher price. And then there's also the myth of the highest price is always the best offer, which is not true at all. So it's crucial to consider the contingencies and also the terms associated with each offer. For example, an offer with fewer or no contingencies is all, which is commonplace in the Bay Area, or a faster closing time may be more advantageous than a higher offer with more contingencies or conditions, right? So if the buyers are offering a rent back to the sellers, this means that the buyers are letting the sellers stay in the house after the sale, rent-free for a couple months while the sellers look for their next property. That can be a huge advantage to the sellers so that they only have to move once. So evaluating the whole complete package of each offer is really will help you make the best decision for your situation, and not necessarily just always looking at the highest price.
That's so good to know, because I think a lot of people are just thinking when it comes to buying and selling, it's just that big number, right? It's not all the kind of little associated aspects that go along with it.
I don't know if there's like a particular myth. I think I've picked up on this from people. I tell people this very often. In real estate, you're doing sales, yes, but I always preach to folks. I think the biggest hurdle we as realtors have to overcome is I think a lot of people equate us with a comparable of, which is what I use, is of a used car salesman. Or I always tell people, like, I hate walking into furniture stores because the moment I go into a Gardner White, it's like sharks smelling blood. There's fresh meat who just walked in the door, and there's like 3-4 people constantly asking me, and let me show you this, and that we got this special. It's like, just leave me alone. If I want to look, and then if I want to buy something, I will find you, I promise. But you tend to just feel like you're getting roped into conversations and being sold something all the time, and it's really frustrating. And I feel like people have the expectation that a realtor is trying to to do the same thing, right? Like I think that a person's narrative in their mind might be, I just want to see the house. And now I got this guy who's asking me all these questions. I just want to see the house. So what's your end game here, dude? I feel like a lot of people are thinking. And what I try to explain to people is I didn't get into this profession to be a used car salesman or a furniture salesman. I got into it to help people. And again, it goes back to what we talked a little bit about earlier. Help people realize like this is potentially the largest purchase of your life. Do you really not want to have somebody who knows your wants and needs and can explain to you the market conditions and help you hopefully save money through educating you on a few different things? I think that's important for people to know. Like, I'm not here to sell you something. I'm here to help you. And whether that's going to take one day, 1 week, or 1 year, it doesn't matter to me. That's okay. I just want to make sure that the reason why I'm asking these questions is I'm a licensed professional and I can add absolutely no value to helping you achieve this goal if I know nothing about you. So I'm not just going to be a door opener and stand at the front door and let you look at the house and then close the door and lock up. I'm sure you could find somebody to do that for you, but that person certainly is not who you want to write an offer with, because are they really advocating for you at that point? So it's important for me to let people know, like, I'm here to have your back through this really intense, expensive purchase that you're about to, take on. And I'm not here to sell you anything at all. If it was up to me, there would be no, exclusive buyer agency agreement that we have to sign before meeting, And I tell that to people. I'm honest with people. I'm like, it's the law now. I'm not going to lose my license over it. So we have to do this, and here's why. And you explain it to them, and again, you get to know them. But if I didn't have to do that, it would just be, listen, I want to develop a relationship with you. I want to help you. I want you to see like I'm earning your business, and we go from there. So I think there's this inherent, like, that first tour, that first showing people go on. There's this inherent tension because it's like, oh, I got to deal with this person, this real estate agent who's going to sell me a bill of goods and tell me to go over asking, and just have me throw money away, and that's probably a justified reputation that happened over time, right? There's a reason why people have certain perceptions about certain facets of certain businesses, right? It's why I have the perception about used car salesmen, because I've never gone to a car dealership and just been left alone to look at cars, right? So I try to overcome that just through being completely honest and transparent with them. And again, it goes back to that relationship development. So I wish we could bust the myth of not all realtors are that way, right? A lot of us genuinely are just there. We got into this business to help. And I've always said, like, if I do a good job just helping people, the benefits to me, like my livelihood and how I can survive and make money, it will happen. It will work out for me. But you have to approach it through the lens of not locking somebody into a contract, or, just telling them any number that will secure a contract which you can make money off of, right? You got to be honest, and if they should go under asking, tell them they should go over asking. You don't tell them they should go over asking just because it will for sure get you a house under contract. And I think people need to see that out of us, and have that trust in us. And when they have that trust in us, we won't have that stigma of, being salesmen without morals and ethics, right? And certainly the NAR lawsuit coming into play now. I'm sure most people didn't even know about it, but now everyone knows about it because all the new rules. So that probably further exacerbates, like, oh boy, these people I'm working with were just part of this big lawsuit. Can they be trusted? And yeah, again, where there's some bad eggs, yes, not all of us are bad eggs, and that would be the biggest myth I'd want to bust.
Yeah, I think you bring up an important point about kind of you said early in our conversation, having a certain energy, and it's like finding that balance of, right? Like, you don't want to have maybe so much energy that you are coming off as that used car salesman as that furniture salesperson who's just like giving you your space, but really looking at you, like constantly from 50 feet away. It's a little
Hmm.
much.
Hmm.
I've been there. But it's funny because I had an interaction with a used car salesman that was so low energy. There was not, it could have been the perfect car, but I was like, this guy doesn't care. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care if I buy this car. Like, I thought maybe he'd get a commission. Doesn't seem like he needs it. Like, I'm gonna go somewhere else. So, I've had both interactions, and I do think there is a sweet spot.
Absolutely. People know when you're just going through the motions and doing the bare minimal, they can pick up on it. You don't have to be in a profession to pick up on somebody who's not feeling their job that day, right? And just going through the motions. So you just we pick that up as like a sixth sense we have as humans. And yeah, if I was over the top bombastic, um, I would probably turn away some people because it's like, wow, man, you are too loud and it's borderline obnoxious, and just chill a little bit. You got to find that balance, right? It's just like the conversation you and I are having, just a normal conversation. I'm not speaking monotone, but I'm not like all the way up here, right? High pitch. So I think that's what a customer would want to feel on the other side. Just have a conversation with me, and then we'll go from there. And through that conversation, you'll decide like if this is somebody I trust enough or not to help me with whatever the purchase is, whether it be a car or something else.
There are a ton of myths. I think my biggest actual frustration is we get labeled, not only us, but also lenders, as salespeople, which we are salespeople. In essence, that's what we are. But I think that label comes with a negative connotation. Like we're trying to get something from you. Saying like we're trying to take something from you or we have some kind of hidden agenda that's going on, right? I think that oftentimes that puts a distance between, the real estate agent and the client, or the lender and the client, when there should be nothing but openness and transparency. Now, could it be because they had a bad experience in the past with another real estate agent or another lender or maybe a car salesman or something like that? And I totally understand that, because sales is my job. But also I try to tell everybody, the more transparent you are with your lender or with your real estate agent, that opens doors. Because if I don't know all the factors involved in what you're looking to accomplish, your goals, your dreams, maybe this is your pit stop to the next house or whatever. If I don't know these things, I can't help you the best way possible. I think that I really wish that this message would get out. Please be forthright with your real estate agent. Please be forthright, especially with your lender, to tell them exactly what you want. They will work to get you there. I think a lot of times people hold back. I don't know. What is your sense for real estate agents at mortgage? I know you talk with a lot of people, but I mean, if before you did this, what was your experience with real estate agents?
Oh, I had like none. I don't think before I started doing this. I think it was just like, oh, they buy and sell houses. I actually, for a hot second, because I moved to Georgia from Michigan, and I had worked with a single family home builder while I was in college in Michigan. And so I was like in and around construction. I knew permitting and stuff like that. I was really good at the paperwork and lot lines and drawings and stuff like that. And I moved to Georgia and to work in film, but took a minute to get things going. I thought maybe I become a real estate agent. And then I was like, no, it seems like a lot of work. But so I had that background, but I had never tried to buy or sell a home, but I watched a lot of house hunters. I don't know. I don't think I see what you're saying, where there is kind of this negative connotation of the salesperson and things like that. But I personally didn't have that. And now, since talking to so many people, and I absolutely love talking to agents, I really do think it should be rebranded as a hospitality industry or a service industry, because it is so much closer to that than sales.
Now, not to say, I would just give you my impression at first. I was in the military, so of course I was I'm trying to make sure I don't curse. Every time I bring up the military, for me, like military and cursing for me is just synonymous. So I'm trying to break that trend for myself. Um, but I was so like, I'd come back from Iraq, you know what I'm saying? I'd heard, I think I went to like this financial class or something in Iraq, and they're like, if you're renting, you're throwing your money away and all this stuff. So when I came back, I looked at my wife and said, hey, we're buying a house now. So I was just trying to bulldoze the real estate agent through this thing. Like I wasn't listening to her advice. I wasn't listening to what she was saying. I was going to do what I want to do. This is my house. You're not going to tell me. So for me, I just know from the beginning, I was more like, you know, dismissive of the real estate agent, kind of thinking of them as salespeople, really. Oh, she's trying to get me. Like, maybe they're trying to get me to spend more money. Why didn't I know about this? Like, they're hiding something. That was my first initial contact with the real estate agent. And then, can I just share a story?
Yes, please.
About this was a bad transaction, of course. So this is my second home in Virginia that we had bought. And I didn't understand, you know, after even buying my house in, you know, Georgia, like I told you, I didn't even listen to the real estate agent. So I was just, you know, saying like I still didn't understand the process. We talked to the real estate agent. I think we called him on Zillow or something like that. She wanted to meet up at the office and before we go and look at homes. So me and my wife at this time is super pregnant. Like she's super pregnant with my daughter. We show up to the office. She comes out. We go in there. We're talking to her. You know, can we sign a buyer brokerage agreement? Now, I don't know if anybody has told you or if you read anything about the changes in how commission is happening. But I mean, buyer brokerage agreement has been around for a long time. You know what I'm saying? This is not a new thing. I just think that the news covers it a different way. Now, there are some subtle differences, which we're not going to talk about in this video, but you signed a buyer brokerage agreement. 6 months, right? Just met her, 6 months. Day one, signed it. Bang. Let's go look at houses. So she's like, I'll meet you out of the car. She's going to ride with me because we had our son and my wife was pregnant. No problem. Well, we're sitting out in the parking lot and waiting. We're waiting. Now, we're on probably one of the busiest streets in Newport News, Virginia. Okay. One of the busiest streets. And we're sitting there waiting. We're waiting. And we're waiting. And it's been like 10 minutes. I'm like, what is going on? Where's this woman at? So me and my wife are talking. About 5 minutes later, she walks out with no pants on. No pants. Like, I'm like, my mind cannot fathom what is going on. I'm looking out the window. She's walking to the car. And she reminded me of my grandmother. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So she's walking out to us with no pants on in the middle of the busiest street in Newport News. And she says, hey guys, I hate to tell you this, but I can't go showing houses with you because I spilled coffee on my pants. And I was like, probably could have just called me on the cell phone and told me what was going on. But okay, no problem. We ended up buying a house with her anyway. But, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not saying that's a common thing, but I mean, if it happened to me, I mean, I know that there are agents out there that sometimes may not be the greatest in the world. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes I think you need to maybe interview a few agents before you decide to snap one up. So that was our Virginia home buying story. Yeah, it was interesting. Very interesting.
I would have been so embarrassed. I would have never been able to talk to you again. But I also don't think I would have made the choice to go out in public without any pants. And so that's what I'm most confused about.
I trust me when I say it. She leaned onto my wife's window with no pants on. My wife was also confused. So it was interesting. It's anecdotal now, obviously. We ended up actually selling that home for a lot of money. So it was great. But yeah, she wasn't, I wouldn't say the best realtor that I've ever encountered. So, but it's funny. That's why I say, hey, interview your agents, make sure they know what they're talking,
Yeah.
and that they wear pants.
And then
Number
wear pants, you know,
Gotta have
just
pants on.
the basics. What do you think is one of the biggest myths people believe about real estate?
That it's easy. I think that the myth is that, we just sit back and collect our checks and that our job is super duper easy. I think that's probably the biggest myth. And I think we have perpetuated that myth, if I'm being really transparent with you. I know that early in my career, I took on a lot of the stressors in a transaction to shield my clients from all that was going on, right? Meaning that I may look like just a duck gliding across the water, but my feet are like this under the water, right? And I only let my clients see this because that's what I thought I was doing, serving them well. The issue was it became like it looked easy and it took on the appearance of, wow, that seemed really easy for you to make X amount of dollars or whatever that is, right? What they didn't realize was that the feet were always going, the mind was always going, and that I took on a lot of negotiations they knew nothing about, stress they knew nothing about. I was doing so much behind the scenes, but I was shielding them from that it appeared easy, but man, I was working my tail off behind the scenes. And so I think that that is a misnomer that a lot of us have done in our business. So that's probably the hardest part, right? And so what I encourage my agents and what I've now started to do is pull back that curtain a little bit. They don't need to know the nitty gritty. They don't need to know the down and dirty. They don't need to know the tears. They don't need to know, that I stay up at night worrying about if the transaction is going to close or how am I going to negotiate this or how is this change going to affect this, or they don't need to know how I'm running my business to best serve them. However, they do need to know if this doesn't happen, then this isn't going to happen for them. And so they need to understand that there are a lot of pivots that happen along the way, and I need to allow them in to see those to really kind of show my value, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Yeah. It's all
So
about demonstrating your value.
it is. And I can talk my value all the time, but you're right, Kat. It's that demonstration of the value. And you can only do that within the transaction, right? I can talk about my value all the time, but unless somebody sees it in play, I can talk about, I've been watching the Olympics lately, right? And I could get up
Hmm.
there and I could say, oh, I can run a 4-minute mile. I can't, but let's just pretend I said that, right? But unless I actually show them I can run a 4-minute mile, they're just believing my words, right? I have to prove it to them. And the only way I can prove it to them is actually getting out and running the race and doing the things and showing them, hey, maybe this wasn't the best. Maybe we need to pivot here, or maybe we need to do this. Or I had a client this morning where we're in the midst of negotiating repairs. I've had no less than 8 conversations between myself and the other agent. Well, my client doesn't know I've had these 8 conversations because I don't update them every single time I speak to the agent. So she texted me this morning, how's it going? I haven't heard since, 2 days ago. And I'm like, oh, I need to tell her I'm still working through this, right? Every time she comes to me and says, I haven't heard, I've not done my job because I haven't gone to her. She had to prompt me. So I need to ramp up my communication. And I don't like it when people come to me. I want to be going to them, right? So what I should have done this morning first thing is saying, hey, just so you know, we're still working through this, still having conversations about this. So she's not over there worried because I know she's over there worried because no communication equals bad communication to her. right? And so, that's just a lesson. But she doesn't need to know I'm sitting here going, come on, let's get through this. She doesn't know I'm pushing back and I'm pushing back and I'm advocating and I'm advocating. She doesn't need to know the nitty gritty of the conversation that I'm having between the agent and myself, but she does need to know that I'm out here advocating for her. I don't want her to know silence. So I think that that's, also a lesson is just pulling back that curtain a little bit and making sure that they're aware that even though there's quiet times, I'm still fiercely advocating for them.
And I think athletics is honestly, it's a great example for so many things, right? Because athletes, they train and train and train to Olympics is a great example to perform for, I don't know, 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Whatever sport you're in.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the other thing, to your point of, oh, people might think it seems easy. Well, every transaction you've done up until the most current transaction is preparing you for the current one, for the next one. As you say, it's
Yes,
always changing.
absolutely. And it's very interesting because with some of the changes that are coming in with NAR, I keep talking to my agents about be able to articulate your value. Articulate your value to a seller and articulate your value to a buyer. My value to a seller and my value to a buyer looks very different today than it did when I first got in the business because of all those lessons that I learned along the way, right? And my value now is much higher. And we have new agents coming in to the industry. The barrier to our industry is extremely low. You take a class, you take a test, boom, you're an agent. And on the surface, you hold the same designation as I do as far as agent goes. Not a broker, but as far as an agent goes. So to the general public, value is the same until you start digging into their chapter 1. You cannot compare it to my chapter 180, right? You can't compare it to the miles I've put in or the transactions I've put in. Now, I'm not saying I'm any better or worse than them or they're any better or worse than me, but there is certain value there for the season and the miles that you have in the transactions that you've done. So the experience that you've gained along the way. So I think that it's definitely an industry that a lot of people will compare what they think are apples to apples, but it's really apples to kumquats. There's not really a comparison. So the general public needs to do a lot of interviewing and they need to ask questions of the people that they want to work with to make sure that they're the best advocate for them in whatever position they are. And that also becomes part of the humans over health.
What do you think is one of the biggest myths people believe about real estate today?
They think it's easy. They think it's a quick buck. We don't deserve what we do, but it's so intense what we do. There's so much psychological going on, psychological issues, mindset. I mean, it's a lot. And the thing is, I've developed these contacts and these systems in 10 years. So I mean, you're dealing with someone who's very sophisticated now what she's doing, and that makes it really much smoother. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just you're paying for my systems and my contacts, and I have and I try to go above and beyond. Like, we're going to power wash and we're going to mulch and we're going to put flowers outside and we're going to put sod down because it's all about the curb appeal. And sometimes I don't see that, but it really makes an impact. It increases your value and chances of selling faster. And I really encourage people to stage. That really increases your value and you sell faster. So, but I have all those contacts for them, so I kind of handle everything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
With being in this industry for a decade, you've definitely become this major resource for all of your clients.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's kind of like a lawyer. Like you hate them until you really do need them, and then you're like, oh gosh, they when you start using it, then oh my gosh, they really are helping. But you don't really understand that until you're in that situation where you need one. But we play a vital role in the community. Like, our impact on the community is financial impact and job impact. I mean, we play a huge impact. Anytime someone buys or sells a house, is a huge impact in the neighborhood and the society at large. I mean, we play a major role. So it's very. I love that. It's like a spider web. We just touch everything.
Yeah, and it brings it back to, your kind of your service-based mindset.
Yes, but I mean, I employ so many people, like title and lender and the county and power washers and landscapers. Like you're empowering so many people. So I have a maid service, and I never expected this, but because I give her so much business, she cleans my house for free twice a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because she's like, you're the main source of income for me.
Wow.
Because what I do is I just go on social media all day, and then I go on Nextdoor, and people are like, I need a maid. I'm like, Anna, 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 Anna. So I just get her name out there constantly.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And it's so wonderful that you can lift others up in that way.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really exciting career. I really enjoy it.
Thank you for listening to the Closing Table podcast brought to you by WindowStill. I'm Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.